Momo and Diddi go to space. One bright morning, Momo the monkey woke up very early. The sun was shining. The birds were singing. Everything looked perfect. But Momo was not looking at the trees. He was not looking at the flowers. He was looking at the sky. Very high in the sky. Said Momo. He scratched his head, then he scratched his belly, then he scratched his head again. What is up there? At that moment, Diddi the little yellow duck walked by. He was carrying a big sandwich. Actually, it was a very, very big sandwich. It was almost bigger than Diddi. "Good morning, Momo," said Diddi. "Good morning, Diddi," said Momo. Diddi took a giant bite of his sandwich. Crunch, munch, nom. "What are you looking at?" asked Diddi. "The sky," said Momo. Diddi looked up. "I see clouds." Momo shook his head. "No, higher." Diddi looked higher. "I see birds." Momo shook his head again. "No, much higher." Diddi looked even higher. "I see nothing." Momo smiled. "Exactly." Diddi blinked. "What?" "I want to know what is up there." Diddi thought for a moment. Then he took another bite of his sandwich. "Maybe more sky." Momo laughed. "Maybe, but I want to see it myself." Diddi nearly dropped his sandwich. "Yourself?" "Yes." "How?" Momo pointed dramatically at the sky. "We are going to space." The sandwich fell. Splat! Right into the mud. Diddi stared at Momo. Momo stared at Diddi. Diddi stared at the muddy sandwich. Then he cried, "My sandwich!" After a few minutes, Diddi finally stopped crying. Well, mostly stopped. He was still a little sad. "So," said Diddi, "how do we go to space?" Momo smiled. "We build a rocket!" Diddi's eyes became huge. "A rocket?" "Yes." "Do you know how to build one?" Momo thought for a second. "No." Diddi sighed. This is already a bad plan. But Momo was excited. He ran around the yard. He picked up boxes. He picked up buckets. He picked up old pipes. He even picked up a broken wheelbarrow. "What are you doing?" asked Diddi. "Building." "Building what?" "The rocket." Diddi looked at the pile. It looked like trash. Very strange trash. The strangest trash he had ever seen. "Are you sure?" asked Diddi. "Of course," said Momo. 3 hours later, the rocket was finished. Well, kind of finished. It was crooked. One side was taller than the other. The door was upside down, and nobody knew why there was a bathtub on top. Diddi pointed at it. "Why is there a bathtub?" Momo looked at it. "I don't know. Then why is it there?" Momo smiled. "It looks cool." Diddi could not argue with that. It did look cool. A little silly, but cool. The two friends climbed inside. The rocket creaked. It groaned. It squeaked. It made sounds that rockets probably should not make. Diddi looked nervous. "Is this safe?" Momo pressed a random button. A loud horn blasted. Honk! Both of them jumped. "No," said Momo honestly. Suddenly, a voice came from a small radio. "Hello, hello!" Momo and Diddi gasped. "Who is that?" asked Diddi. The radio crackled. "My name is Professor Owl." "Oh," said Momo. Professor Owl was the smartest animal in town. He knew everything. Well, almost everything. Nobody knew why he wore 3 pairs of glasses. "Professor Owl!" shouted Momo. "We are going to space!" The professor was silent. For a moment, then another moment, then another. Finally he said, "Please tell me you are not inside that thing." Momo looked around. "We are inside that thing." Professor Owl groaned. "Oh dear." A few minutes later, Professor Owl arrived. He looked at the rocket. Then he looked at Momo. Then he looked at the rocket again. Then he looked at Momo again. "I have many questions," he said. "Is it good?" asked Momo proudly. "No." "Very good?" "No." "Amazing?" "No." "Fantastic?" "No." Professor Owl sighed. "This is not a rocket." Diddi nodded. "I told him." Professor Owl smiled. "If you really want to visit space, I can help." Momo jumped with excitement. "Really?" "Of course." For the next few days, everyone worked together. Professor Owl made plans. Momo carried tools. Diddi carried snacks, mostly snacks, a lot of snacks. Soon, a real rocket stood in the middle of the field. It was shiny, it was strong, it was beautiful. Momo's eyes sparkled. Diddy's beak dropped open. Professor Owl smiled proudly. Now this is a rocket. The day finally arrived. Animals from all over town came to watch. Everyone cheered. Everyone waved. Momo and Diddi climbed inside. Professor Owl gave them helmets. Remember, he said, be brave, be careful, and don't push random buttons. Momo slowly moved his hand away from a button. Professor Owl narrowed his eyes. I saw that. The countdown began. 10, 9, 8, 7. Momo bounced in his seat. 6, 5. Diddi held his helmet tightly. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off! The rocket shook. The ground rumbled. The sky flashed. Up, up, up. They flew higher than the trees, higher than the mountains, higher than the clouds. Soon, the earth looked smaller and smaller. Diddi looked out the window. His eyes became huge. Momo, what? I think we are really doing it. Momo smiled. We are going to space. And neither of them knew that a very funny surprise was waiting for them among the stars. The rocket zoomed through space. Whoosh! Momo pressed his face against the window. Diddi pressed his face against another window. Everything was dark, but it was not scary. It was beautiful. Tiny stars sparkled everywhere. Some looked like diamonds. Some looked like tiny lamps. Some looked like little pieces of ice. Wow, whispered Diddi. Momo nodded. Space is amazing. Then something very strange happened. Diddi floated out of his seat, slowly, quietly, like a feather. Momo? Yes? I think my chair is broken. Momo turned around. Diddi was floating near the ceiling. Momo started laughing. Then he floated too. Soon both friends were drifting around the rocket. Up, down, left, right, everywhere. Whee! This is fun, shouted Momo. Diddi spun around, and around, and around, and around. Then his face turned green. Maybe not too much fun. Meanwhile, a bag floated past them. Momo grabbed it. What is this? Diddi looked. My snacks! The bag burst open. Crackers flew everywhere. Cookies floated everywhere. Sandwiches floated everywhere. One giant cookie landed on Momo's head. Bonk! Another landed on Diddy's beak. Plop! The two friends laughed so hard that they could barely breathe. Suddenly, a warning light started blinking. Blink! 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 What is that? Asked Diddi. Momo looked nervous. I don't know. The blinking became faster. Blink! 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 Then the radio crackled. It was Professor Owl. Hello, Momo. Hello, Diddi. We are here, shouted Momo. Professor Owl smiled. Everything okay? Before Momo could answer, a sandwich floated across the screen. Then a cookie. Then Diddi, upside down. Professor Owl sighed. I see everything is normal. We are having fun, shouted Diddi. Good, said Professor Owl. Just remember to check your fuel. Momo looked confused. Our what? Professor Owl gasped. Your fuel! Oh, please tell me you checked it. Momo looked at Diddi. Diddi looked at Momo. Both smiled nervously. Professor Owl covered his face. Oh dear. Just then, something appeared outside. A bright light. A moving light. A dancing light. Look, shouted Diddi. The light came closer. Closer! Closer! Soon they could see it clearly. It was a spaceship. A very strange spaceship. It was round. It was colorful. And it had giant smiling faces painted on it. The ship stopped beside them. A door opened. Out came a little green creature. He had 3 eyes, 2 ears, and 4 tiny arms. Hello, said the creature. Momo and Diddi waved. Hello, the creature smiled. My name is Zippy. My name is Momo. My name is Diddi. Zippy looked excited. I have never seen a monkey in space. Momo grinned. I have never seen a green guy with 3 eyes. Zippy laughed. Soon all three became friends. Zippy invited them to visit his planet. "Can we?" asked Diddy. "Of course," said Zippy. The friends followed his spaceship. Soon they arrived at a wonderful planet. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. The grass was purple. The trees were blue. The clouds were pink. Even the rivers sparkled. "Wow," said Momo. "Double wow," said Diddy. Everywhere they looked, there were strange and funny things. Bouncing flowers, singing rocks, dancing trees. One tree even sneezed. "Achoo!" And all its leaves flew away. Then they grew back. Diddy laughed so hard he fell over. The people on the planet were friendly. Everyone smiled. Everyone waved. Everyone wanted to meet the visitors from Earth. One little alien gave Diddy a glowing fruit. Diddy took a bite. Crunch! His eyes became huge. "This is delicious." "What does it taste like?" asked Momo. Diddy thought carefully. "Bananas." "Really?" "And pizza." "What?" "And ice cream." "What?" "And soup?" Momo blinked. "That makes no sense." Diddy took another bite. "I know." As the day continued, the friends explored more of the planet. They played games. They met new aliens. They took pictures. They laughed. They danced. They had the best day ever. But then, something went wrong. Very wrong. A loud alarm echoed across the sky. Beep! 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 Everyone stopped. Everyone looked up. Dark clouds were moving toward the planet. Huge clouds. Scary clouds. "What is happening?" asked Momo. Zippy looked worried. "The storm is coming." "The storm?" Zippy nodded. "The biggest storm of the year." Strong winds began to blow. The trees shook. The rivers splashed. The ground trembled. Then Diddy remembered something. "The rocket!" The three friends ran back. But when they reached the landing area, they gasped. The wind had pushed the rocket. It was stuck between two giant crystal rocks. "Oh no," cried Momo. "If we can't move it, we can't go home." The storm grew stronger. Whoosh! The rocket would not move. Momo pushed. Nothing. Diddy pushed. Nothing. Zippy pushed. Nothing. Even together, they could not move it. The storm was getting closer. Everyone looked worried. Then Momo had an idea. A silly idea. But sometimes, silly ideas are the best ideas. He smiled. "I know what to do." "What?" asked Diddy. Momo pointed toward a field full of giant bouncing flowers. The flowers bounced all day long. Up, down, up, down. Momo explained his plan. Diddy blinked. "That is crazy." Zippy blinked. "Very crazy." Momo grinned. "Exactly." A few minutes later, they pushed hundreds of bouncing flowers behind the rocket. The flowers bounced. Boing, boing, boing. Then they bounced harder. Boing, boing, boing. Suddenly, thump! The rocket jumped. Thump! It moved again. Thump! It popped free. Everyone cheered. "It worked!" shouted Diddy. "It actually worked!" shouted Zippy. Momo puffed out his chest proudly. "I am a genius." Then one flower bounced into him. Boing! Momo flew into a bush. Everyone laughed. Soon it was time to leave. The storm was almost there. Zippy hugged his new friends. "Thank you for visiting." "Thank you for helping us," said Momo. "We will miss you," said Diddy. The rocket lifted off. The aliens waved below. Momo and Diddy waved back. Soon the colorful planet became smaller and smaller, then smaller, then smaller, until it disappeared. The trip home was peaceful. They watched the stars. They shared stories. They ate the last cookies. Well, almost all the cookies. Diddy had secretly hidden 3 cookies in his helmet. Finally, Earth appeared ahead. Blue, green, beautiful. "We are home," whispered Momo. The rocket landed safely. Animals rushed to greet them. Everyone cheered. Everyone clapped. Everyone wanted to hear their story. Professor Owl arrived smiling. "So," he said, "how was space?" Momo laughed. "Amazing!" Diddy laughed. "Crazy! Would you go again?" asked Professor Owl. Momo and Diddy looked at each other. Then they smiled. "Absolutely. That night, the two friends sat together under the stars, the same stars they had visited, the same stars that once seemed so far away. Momo smiled. You know, Diddi. Yes? The universe is very big, Diddi nodded. Very big. And there are probably many things we still don't know. Diddi smiled. That means more adventures, Momo grinned. Exactly. And as the stars twinkled above them, the two friends dreamed about their next great adventure. Okay, dear English learners, the lesson of today's story is, when friends work together, they can do amazing things. If you enjoyed this adventure, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. See you in the next Momo and Diddi adventure. Bye-bye.